Hi, I'm LaManda Joy, founder of the Peterson Garden Project. It's the start of the gardening season, so we're going to talk today about our Grewbie 101 class. That's where we teach our brand new gardeners the essentials that they have to do to get settled into their plot at the beginning of the season. So we're going to cover a lot of things today. It's not the only education you're going to have this year. We're going to have a lot more later on, but these are the basics to get you started at the beginning of the gardening season. The first thing that we're going to do when we're getting ready to plant for the season is take care of our raised bed. So we're going to assess what's going on here. We're going to get rid of some weeds. We're going to go ahead and make sure that the soil is ready to plant. And so a couple things. We see some weeds here, so we're going to pull some of those weeds and get those out. And of course, I'm going to take those out of here with me. So I'm going to pull those. And then if there's any rocks or any debris that you might find in here, I'm going to throw that out. I'm just going to make sure that that's pretty clean. Now, one thing I want you to be aware of is that you never want to step on the soil for your garden. It's going to compact it, and it's going to break up some of the air pockets and make it less friable and a good environment for organisms and plants. So this bed looks pretty good. I inherited this from somebody last year. It looks pretty good, but if you have a bed where the soil's not to the top like this, you're going to want to get some mushroom compost, organic of course, or some other type of compost and make that sure that it's full. We want to make sure that we have enough growing space for our plants. So make sure that your plot is all the way to the top. Otherwise, I'm just going to dig around a little bit. This soil is nice and loose, looks good, looks healthy. You know, you never want to turn your soil. A lot of people get all excited and they want to get in here with a shovel and turn it over. You don't want to do that because that's going to break up some of those channels, like I was saying, for those air pockets and those other organisms that live here. So as long as it's loose like this, it's good, it's nice and dark, it's full to the top, it looks like you're ready to go ahead and start planting. So I'm going to show you how to take this plant out of the pot and what to do with it if it's root bound. So many plants that you are going to buy are going to come in a plastic pot like this, or have probably been in this pot for quite a while when they were being grown in the nursery and then delivered to wherever you got them. So it's really easy to take a plant out of a plastic pot. Don't be afraid. You just flip it over and you kind of squeeze the pot until the plant is ready to come out, and then you just take that pot off. See, that's super easy. And then what you might find, this plant's pretty good, but sometimes you're going to find that your plants are what they call root bound. So that means if they've been in the pot for a long time, the roots are just sort of growing in a circle. And that's not a great thing, because if you don't break those roots up, they'll just continue to be growing in a circle when you put it in the ground. And that's not going to give you the healthiest plants possible. So if this plant were root bound, what I would do is I would just sort of take it like this and very gently, remember gently is the key word, gently sort of break it up a little bit. You can hear, if you listen really closely, there's like a gentle cracking sound that happens. That's those roots sort of tearing apart and loosening up. So that looks good. I've broken up those roots and now we're ready to put it in the ground. Okay, now we're going to learn how to plant seedlings. Now there's two different things that you need to learn: how to plant a tomato and how to plant everything else. It's very important that you recognize the difference. You're going to have some sad plants. So let's start with the tomato. This is my tomato plant. Now the trick about planting tomatoes is that you can plant them very deep, because you'll have roots that want to grow along this stem, right? So I'm going to set him here. I'm going to start by digging a really, really deep hole. So I'm just going to put my extra soil over there, and I'm going to dig really far down, as far as I can get. And then I'm going to go ahead and take him out, and I'm going to just gently turn this over, and I'm going to squeeze the pot gently until he comes out. Now we might find that he's a little root bound. So root bound means, again, that the roots grow around in a circle. He's pretty good, but what I'm going to do just is gently pop that so those roots are nice and loose and they're going to grow out instead of in a circle. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to put him in here, and you'll notice that he's very deep, right? So it looks like I'm going to be planting up to here, which is what we want to do. So I'm going to just pinch off these extra leaves that are going on here. Pinch those off. I'm going to take my soil and I'm going to go ahead and just fill this hole in. See, and I'm burying that stem. That's what we want. We want that stem to be buried. Now what that's going to do, as I said, is it's going to create roots all along the stem of that tomato, and it's going to make it stronger and sturdier. I'm also going to, now that I have them in there, sort of do this to create a little depression at the base of the plant. See that little depression? So what that's going to do, when I water, that's going to get the water right in there. It's going to funnel that water to the base of this plant instead of letting it spread out. So that's the trick to planting tomatoes. Tomatoes are the only thing that are planted that way. I can't emphasize that enough. Let's plant something else. Now this is a pepper. So we're going to follow some similar steps, except with this, we're not going to plant as deep. We only want to go as deep as the root ball of the plant is tall. So that means if I take this plant out, and again, I'm just going to flip him over very gently. I'm going to flip him over very gently. I'm going to see if he's root bound. He's not too bad, but I am going to crack that a little bit. And then I want to gauge where the top of this plant's going to be. So I'm going to put a little soil back in here because I don't want to plant the stem of this like I did with the tomato. This guy needs to have the soil right where the top of the pot soil is. So what I'm going to do is just sort of fill that like that. See, I'm not planting up the roots, but I am going to go ahead and make that depression. So when we go ahead and water, it's going to funnel all of that water directly to the base of the plant. So that's the difference between planting a tomato and any other type of seedling. It's very important that you understand that tomatoes, you can plant up the stem, everything else, plant at the base of the root, the top of where the pot was. Real important. I want to show you one other trick. If you want to use an organic fertilizer, we do all organic in our gardens, but if you want to use an organic fertilizer when you plant, I'm going to plant another pepper and show you how you can do that. So I'm going to dig my hole, and remember we want that hole to not be any taller than the base of the plant, so I'm going to put a little bit more in there and just gauge that. But what I'm going to do is I have this is an organic granular fertilizer, and I'm just going to take a little bit of it, just a little pinch of that, and I'm just going to mix it into the bottom of the hole, right? We don't want that fertilizer touching the roots, but we do want the roots to grow into it. So again, I'm going to go just take this plant, pop that root ball, make sure that those roots are nice and free so they can grow out and be strong. And I'm going to put a little bit more in there. And that looks like about right. So I'm going to go ahead, plant that guy. Then I'm going to go ahead and make the depression that will allow that water to flow right to the base of the plant. And that's how you're going to want to use a granular fertilizer when you plant, if that's something that you want to do. So one of the really important things that you need to pay attention to when you're learning to garden is how to read a seed package. If I've seen it once, I've seen it a million times. If you plant things too deeply, they won't grow, and it's going to make you sad. So we're going to teach you briefly how to read the important information on the back of a seed package. So when you're looking at a seed package, and they're all different, this one happens to be from Seed Savers Exchange, and it's got some good information, but they're all different. So there's certain things that you want to look for on a seed package. So you're going to want to look for, as I said, the most important thing is the seed depth. So you'll see that this type of seed wants to be about 1/4 of an inch deep. You're going to want to look for germination, how long it takes for the seed to come up. So in this case, it's 7 to 14 days. And then you're going to see some other information here. You're going to see that we direct seed this, so that means that we put it directly in the ground versus starting it from a plant indoors. And then we're going to have some information about the variety itself. We're going to learn how long it takes for it to grow, when it's going to be ready. That's that bit of information. And then you're going to have other information that might be useful, and it varies from packet to packet. You might have whether it's organic or not. You might have these special tips. You're going to have a Latin name. So it's really important to understand those basic essentials of a seed packet, so when you actually go to plant your seeds, you're doing it properly. So we're going to plant some seeds. I'm going to show you to plant 2 different types of seeds. One, a fairly large seed that's pretty easy to see and put in place. And then second, some lettuce seeds, which are a little bit tinier, and you sow them a little bit differently. So we're planting these big seeds. It's really easy, and it's also really easy to make a mistake. I often see people making a huge hole. They stick their finger way down there and then drop a seed, and you can hear an echo. You don't want to do that. You want to make the hole for the seed about twice the depth of the seed itself. So I'm just going to make a little hole. It's not very deep, as you can see. I'm going to take one of my seeds, I'm going to drop it in, and then gently cover it. Not rocket science. I'm going to do it again so you can see. I'm not going to make it very deep. It's about twice the depth of the seed. I'm going to drop it in, and I'm going to cover it. I'm going to do it one more time so you can get it. Not going to make it very deep. I'm going to drop it in, and then I'm going to go ahead and just cover it up. So that's how simple it is to plant large seeds. Remember, only plant is about twice the size of the seed deep. So I'm going to set these guys here, and now we're going to talk about broadcasting. Now broadcasting is a different type of planting, and we usually do that for very tiny seeds. So if you look at these seeds, look how small those are. It would be very hard to put those in specific holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them back in there for a second. I'm going to take this digger, and I'm just going to sort of loosen this soil up a little bit. Like that, so it's nice and sort of level but loose. And then I'm going to take these little seeds again, and I'm going to put some in my left hand, and I'm going to do what's called broadcasting. So I'm just going to take a pinch, and I'm going to sprinkle it like I would salt on a dish. Just sort of sprinkle those randomly in that space so that there's a little bit of coverage. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a bunch of little plants that come up in this space, and you could do two things with them. You could thin them if you want, or you could just eat them as baby greens like you would buy at the grocery store. So I'm going to go ahead and put those guys back, and then I'm just very gently going to push this down so they're in the soil. Cover them up a little bit so they're not going to fly away, and they're there. So that's how you broadcast seeds. So the next thing that we're going to teach you is how to water properly. This is a very important task. Now there's a lot of people that like to just put water everywhere, throw water on top of things all over the place. That's a waste of water and a waste of your time, and it's really not great for the plants. So what you're going to want to do is, when you're watering a plant, you're going to water as close to the base of the plant as possible to make sure that that's where, that's where the roots are, so you want to make sure that's where the water goes. So you'll notice that I put a saucer at the base of this plant when I planted it. So that allows that water to just be targeted and go directly to the base of the plant. I'm going to do that for this tomato too. Go ahead and give him a good drink. See how that water is staying there at the base of the plant? It's all going to soak in, and it's going to be really beneficial to the roots. All this other space, this in-between space, there's no plants growing there, so you don't really have to focus on watering that. Just be very targeted and get in there right at the base. Now that's how you water a plant, but you water seeds a little bit differently for different reasons. So this nozzle just is a straight stream that went to the base of the plants, but when we're going to be watering seedlings, we need a gentler type of water. So you might see a can that has this is called a rose, and essentially it makes sort of a shower feature out of the water that comes out of here. Now the reason you want to do that is because if I use a can and water, it might wash those seeds away, especially if I've broadcast seeds. But if you use this rose, it's going to give us this nice sort of rain-like feature. And it's going to be little drops of water, and it's going to just go in like that. Actually, some of it is washing away. So that's using that rose. So the moral of this story is that for plants, you water as close to the base of the plant as possible to make sure that that water is getting to the roots. And for seeds, you have a nice, gentle, rain-like shower to prevent those seeds from washing away. Now, when they grow into plants, you water them just like you would this tomato. But for the time being, they're special. They need to germinate, they're gentle, and they need to stay moist. So one thing that you're going to need to consider when you're planting your plot is accessibility. So all of our plots are 4x8 and they have pathways around them, right? So you should be able to access anything in your bed from either side of the plot. So we've made it easy for you, but you need to make it easy for you. So you need to think about how big your plants are going to get when they're fully grown. So a lot of people want to plant a lot of tomatoes, so they'll plant a row of tomatoes here, a row of tomatoes there. That's too many tomatoes, by the way, but that's your thing. And then what happens, those tomatoes get big and you're not able to access the stuff in the middle. So as you're thinking about the things you want to plant, the things you want to eat this summer, think about the size of the plants and put the larger plants in the middle, the medium-sized plants in front of the large ones, and the little plants here, so you can access all the way around. Now another thing you're going to need to consider is things that like to climb. So that's going to be cucumbers, pole beans, other peas, squash. So you're going to want to pick an end of this bed, if you're growing those things, and make a trellis. So when you do that, you're going to build a trellis here at the end, and that's going to give the plants, the beans, or whatever you're growing the opportunity to climb up and use your space wisely. So that's called vertical gardening. You're also going to want to make sure that you plant those things here so they can easily reach that trellis and grow up this way. So that's another thing, important aspect to keep in mind as you're plotting out your garden at the start of the season. So that's what you need to know at the very beginning as you get settled in your plot. This has been Grewbie 101. We're going to be offering a lot more resources over the course of the summer as you learn to be fearless in your food garden. This has been Grewbie 101. Special thanks to the Chicago Flower and Garden Show, Swedish Covenant Hospital, and Production One Media.